Hey y'all, welcome to Waterbreak episode 2. We aren't going to label them all. We aren't going to count them all, but this is episode 2.
Second one.
If you didn't get to catch last week's episode, I think it's kind of a good beginner episode on how we think about faith and fitness.
Yeah.
And so make sure you go back and watch that, because there's a lot of assumptions that creep into health and fitness and food. And I think that first show kind of dealt with some of those assumptions already that we guys want you to know about when you listen to us. I want to make sure we didn't mention this last time, but follow my wife on Instagram. That's the best place for people to follow you. What's your Instagram handle?
Annie M. Wrench.
That sounds like it. You should pull that up.
That sounds like something I would.
The other thing, as we get a little smarter, because me and Annie tend to get smarter as things go along, is you can email us Renchmedia@gmail.com if you want to ask some questions about health and maybe any subjects you guys want us to talk about on the show.
Yeah, email us. Yeah, Annie M. Wrench. That's the only way to follow me. I don't do Twitter.
No, you don't.
I don't do.
I think you have a Twitter handle. You just don't do it.
Did you make me one? I didn't make. I don't know how to make one.
I can't remember. I'll check.
I can barely.
I think I did make you a handle.
I can barely do Instagram.
So that's Renchmedia, and whenever you spell wrench, no W, just R-E-N-C-H. Renchmedia@gmail.com. That's a great way to ask us and Annie, particularly Annie, questions.
Yeah.
And bring give us a list of ideas and topics you'd like us to address on the show. We'd love to do more with that. Now I got a special segment. We aren't going to do this every time. Not every time. Okay, I got a little special segment, and I'm not quite sure what the segment's called, but it's a special segment, and we're gonna do it here. Oops, I messed up. Here we go.
He has not told me about this segment, so. This
is my favorite health and fitness ads ever segment. Health and fitness, food. It's gonna be like, we got to come up with a better title of this episode.
Man,
so here's an ad about smoking cigarettes. But there's a real ad back in the day talking about how more doctors smoke Camels than any other cigarettes. So Camels were the healthy doctor choice.
Yes.
If you smoke Marlboros.
Like the Wheaties or the shredded wheat
of cereal.
More
of cigarettes.
Doctors smoke Camels than any other.
Yep.
I mean, I'm sure that's true. That was true. And it wasn't that long ago. When was this? Do you have a date on it?
We don't have a date on it. We should have had a date. Some of these we might have a date. Next time we'll have a date.
Yuck.
Your T-zone will tell you. What's your T-zone?
It's this part of your face.
Oh, it's taste and throat. There it is. It defines it for you. Taste and throat. Mm-hmm. Why would they? Because it helps your.
I can't read it. Your T. T for taste.
Yep.
T. Well, okay.
Share your read that text there.
That's your proving ground for any cigarette. See if Camels don't. Something your T-zone to a T. Okay, that's a play on the word T-zone, because T-zone normally
doesn't suit your T-zone to a T.
I can't. You can read better than I can. I'm blind, but okay. Yep. So they're just trying to be like, they're so tasty. Mm-hmm. Here's your T-zone. Yeah, that's gross.
That was a whistle. Go to the next one, Neil. For better start in life, start cola earlier. So this is 7
Give it to your baby.
How soon is too soon?
No, you cannot give your baby soda
early
soon enough.
Yeah.
I think that correlates to longer life.
It can replace breast milk.
I think it should.
So for those who can't see, this is an ad of a mom handing a baby a 7-Up bottle.
Nothing does it like 7-Up. That is so gross. I can't believe this is just. Please remember this when you read something now.
Yeah, even now. Be skeptical even now.
Just be skeptical forever.
So there we go.
This was just.
We're just going to blow the whistle on that one too. Blow the whistle on that one too. Next one.
Ideal brain tonic.
Coca-Cola.
Interesting. Now, I do have questions about what the ingredients of original Coca-Cola were.
Coke, maybe.
I mean, I would like to see an ingredient list.
Yeah.
Leaves mental and physical exhaustion. Well, I mean, sugar helps with that initially.
For about 20 minutes.
But the headache thing is interesting to me, and I would like to know what was actually in. We should look up what was in
one of our producers.
Original Coca-Cola.
Yeah. They don't have they won't let you see the recipe, but one of our producers literally.
That's true. It's like a secret.
Her sister was having migraines, and the doctor literally this is like last number of years. Doctor said, "Hey, take ibuprofen and Coca-Cola," and it's helped her.
I mean,
and she hasn't had migraines like she used to. So
I don't know what to say about that.
Maybe she was jumping on a trampoline at the same time while drinking cola.
I don't know if that's like a blood sugar thing or if there's something actually in Coca-Cola. I would like to know. Coca-Cola, tell us your recipe.
Did you know? Oh, we got to do another one here. Oh, I already blew the whistle on that one. Okay, so So did you know more than 55% of your daily protein needs can come from McDonald's?
That's something. I mean, that's a great sell. Everybody's into protein right now. So
Where's the protein in that picture, baby?
I think the beef is really it.
Uh-huh.
So the double.
The fries wouldn't have protein?
The fries would not have protein.
Okay.
The meat, I don't know what they put in that. Maybe it's a little questionable. It's hard to say, but that's what that's why it's a double. You're getting 2 patties,
Okay.
And they're like, wow, 55% protein. So just eat it at McDonald's every day. Just double the meat and you're going to live a good life.
I think it's a mix of a cow and mice meat. It's ground beef.
I don't know. Please don't say that. Mice meat.
Okay, we got to blow the whistle on that last one too. That didn't go very well either.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is just to add just for sugar. And look at the date of this.
Sugar.
We need dates.
Sugar just might be the willpower you need to curb your appetite. Well, that's interesting. Have a soft drink before your main meal.
Is that true or false, baby? Will sugar curb your appetite?
Generally, no. It will not help curb your appetite. In fact, most of the time, people are advised to do the opposite. Eat your carbs last. Start with your protein. Maybe even do a preload. That's protein or fat. To kind of helps. That will help.
Yeah.
A spoonful of sugar will not do that.
So where do you think this idea came from? Sugar curbing your willpower? I thought sugar was more addictive or more.
Well, I mean, I don't know where that it's coming from. Don't try to make it make sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know who made this. Like, if it was a sugar company, then that would make sense. They're just like, have spoonfuls of sugar. Maybe that's what it is. I have no idea.
Neil, do we have any more?
I can't believe that. That's great.
That's it. So
that's really good.
For today's show, me and Annie wanted to talk about kind of fad dieting, or particularly 3 food fads that you want to get to. You pick 3.
There's more than 3, but I picked 3.
How many are there?
I have there's no number, but
millions.
Yeah. Like, I did not choose veganism. I chose another 3.
That's not a fad. Veganism.
Well, it's a diet. I doubt it's as popular amongst your listeners.
No, 100%.
So that's one of the reasons I didn't.
100%. I had a friend who was a vegan. I just looked so down on him for it.
I know.
It was so disappointing. And he's from Texas. I'm like, dude, I can be a vegan in Texas.
That would be hard to be a vegan in Texas.
Yeah.
I doubt he was treated well there. But anyways.
Well, so let's talk about fad diets. Maybe just real quick, just kind of maybe define what do you mean by fad diets? Diets that are just kind of in right now.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, there's nothing more than that. It's just diets that are or you can say diet. I'll use that word just because it's easy and we all kind of know what I'm talking about there. But it's like almost like a food paradigm. Sometimes it comes along with a tribe, or almost a religious mindset, And I just picked the 3 that are really prevalent right now. They're really popular right now, and I've run into it a lot. I've done.
Before we get into the 3, I got a couple questions.
Myself. Yeah. And a lot of people that I work with have experience with them, so I just figure this will be helpful and probably make some people a little upset, but that's okay.
Yeah. Fat. I mean, so diets that are kind of cool, or like you said, from a particular tribe that are really hot right now. It seems like we've gone through. I don't know. I've noticed fad dieting since I become kind of got into high school. I guess I remember the Atkins diet in the 90s. I remember. Who is that lady in the 90s that was really big? It was named after her. Jenny Craig. Jenny Craig died. Yeah,
that's right. Jenny Craig, Weight Watchers,
all those things.
Yeah, you're right. There's been so many.
And so I think that should already kind of alert us to like, okay, what's driving this?
Yeah.
What's behind it? In terms of fad dieting. So, and it's nothing. Let's just get there because there's some comments on that
as we go. We talk about it as we go.
What are kind of the most? Are these like the 3 diets we have here? Are these kind of like the most popular right now? Is that why you chose these 3? Why are these 3?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the circles you run in. These are definitely the most popular in the circle that in the space that I'm in, and probably I would say many of the people that are listening are going to be very familiar with these. And I want you to note that we're going to talk about in the order that I see people, not always, but often doing them. There's often a progression, and there's reasons behind that. We'll talk about that. Okay. And then the other thing I want to note just from the jump is I want you guys to also notice because we're going to talk about the pros and cons of each one. Because I think I want to be really fair, and I think there are good and bad to all of these things, and that's kind of what we want to sort through. And I want you guys to note the correlation between pros versus cons of the thing, and with how long or how much of the thing you do. That's going to be a big recurring thing here.
Okay, so the 3 diets that you have written down for me, you have the keto diet, and then you have the dirty keto diet.
Dirty keto is just kind of part of keto. We'll get to
so
it.
that's all still one diet.
That's all one thing, yeah.
Okay, and then you have the carnivore diet.
Carnivore,
meat, love me some meat.
Yes.
And then you have the fasting diet. Fasting diet. Okay.
Yes, I can't wait to get to that one.
Okay.
Let's make sure we get to it.
Okay.
I don't want to run out of time.
We'll make sure we have plenty of time to get there. Okay, let's start with the keto. So you said this is like an order in terms of progression of like someone like wanting to lose weight, they get into dieting, they're likely to start with the keto right now.
Often, yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. And then they usually go in the order that we just listed. Okay, so what do you think the keto diet is? This is really fun because Gabe's not into health and fitness at all, but he does live with me.
I'm into fitness. I like basketball and football. I like watching it.
He loves basketball.
And
But he's not into this stuff, but he does live with me. So it's fun to hear. Every once in a while, he'll try to drop a smart sounding health word. And sometimes he uses it right. And sometimes it's really not right. But so anyways,
I like to pretend all the time. I really do. No.
What do you think the keto diet is?
So without looking at your notes, I always think like the keto diet and the carnivore diet are the same thing to me. That's what I hear.
They're not totally, and we'll talk about that. But I mean, they can be, and they're similar. Yeah.
Okay. So that's deep as it goes for me. So why don't you define the keto diet?
Okay, that's fine. Well, I mean, as many of you probably know, it's just a diet kind of built around the people following it getting into a state of ketosis, or being in a state of ketosis for a good amount of the time. And the way that you do that is you drive your carbs down real low, right? So it's just real low carb.
Like get carbs out of your life, and that's supposed to drive ketosis. Now, why is ketosis important?
Ketosis. Okay. We don't want to get bogged down too much about the science, but it is important. And I'll just say this: I think, ideally, metabolically speaking, for most Americans, it is ideal to be what we would call metabolically flexible. So that would be a person who is able to use both glucose, right, sugar, as fuel, and also free fatty acids and ketones, which are what you burn for fuel when your carbs are really, really low for an extended amount of time.
Ketones are what you burn for a long time, not fat.
Ketones are a molecule created by your liver, and you can also use free fatty acids. So those kind of go together. And ketones are special because they're a molecule that can cross the blood-brain barrier. And when we get to the pros of this diet, we'll talk about that. A lot of people feel really good when they're in ketosis because they feel really, really mentally sharp. So that's one of the pros. So anyways, if a reasonable person is approaching the ketogenic diet, one of the benefits that they might reap from it short term is that they might gain more metabolic flexibility, meaning they don't only just burn sugar for fuel, they actually teach their body how to burn fat as well, right? And that's helpful. So,
which is why a guy like me could have a little bit of a belly, because my body probably tends to burn more sugars for energy than fat.
Yeah, I mean, that could be, maybe. There is benefit to teaching your body to burn its own fat, for sure. And that would be on the pro side of the ketogenic diet if you do it right, okay?
I'm still, I know you like to be organized in our notes, but
that's okay.
It's part of the journey. So I didn't start hearing about like ketones or ketosis probably until I'd say 3-4 years ago. Maybe that's when the fad really started.
It's been around longer than that, but you don't run in.
Well, I don't pay attention to the circles, but still, if I, like the Jenny Atkins and the Weight Watcher, like when you start hearing these buzzwords like ketones that I've never heard for a long, at least that I can recall. I start already thinking like, okay, that seems like a little gimmicky to me, the ketosis thing.
Well, I mean, it's definitely a different package. Atkins diet was also very low carb, just so you know. So a lot of the same concepts were there.
But they never talked about ketones, though.
Not really. The ketogenic diet came out of, it was originally designed for kids, I believe, in particular with epilepsy. And it was a treatment.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was and an effective one for epilepsy because ketones are very protective of the brain. That would be another pro to short-term keto. It helps with issues of the brain. Migraines,
so does that mean are you pushing it back to like 1920s then?
A long time, a decent, and a long time ago. And then they came out with anti-seizure medications, and those sort of replaced the ketogenic diet because it's really hard to get a kid into very deep ketosis because it's like they're barely eating any carbs and that's just kind of hard.
Right.
But it was very, very effective. So it's rooted. It's got some really interesting science behind it. But I just think we can, just like any good thing, we can do too long and too much, and we can end up hurting ourselves a little bit. But anyways.
So we're going to go through the pros and cons then now.
That's the idea.
So what are the pros of the keto diet?
Okay, yeah. And I just want to say I'm a fan of the keto diet when done correctly and used wisely. I have clients right now who are in doing a little foray in the ketogenic diet.
I mean, I'm in ketosis right now. I mean,
he's in ketosis right now. That's why he's so smart. The ketones are so many in his brain. So short term, I would really say that most of the benefits you're going to see with the ketogenic diet is going to be using it kind of surgically in the short term. I would probably, there's always exceptions, but I would say short term means like 6 months or less for them on average. Yeah, sure. I would say on average. Okay. Sure. And that's probably true about a lot of things we're going to talk about, but you do definitely see weight loss. It's very effective. You see, short-term insulin sensitivity, which is really, really important. So a lot of times when people come to me and their fasted insulin is way too high, I just say, well, we're going to bring your carbs down for a while. And that can be really, really effective, right? And that's really good. Okay. Metabolic flexibility is a great way to get that, which we just talked about, so that you can be kind of on a dual fuel system as opposed to being so dependent on sugar, which is not very pleasant. And that is kind of the current state of most Americans.
When we talked last week, and we were just telling the story of how when me and you were younger, we'd go on a vacation together or we'd travel together and you'd wake up in the hotel room that morning and you'd be like, please get me some food now. I need food within 10 minutes.
That is a perfect
example. Is that because you're so heavily dependent on sugars?
Okay. 100% zero metabolic flexibility. That's exactly. And it's a kind of a burden to live that way. You know, a lot of people do, and a lot of people just don't know.
I felt controlled. I mean,
it was a burden on you. You had to run down in your pajamas.
I had to wake up first thing and feed my hangry wife food.
Couldn't travel without snacks, couldn't shop without snacks, and that's a perfect example of someone who's not metabolically flexible. So it's a wonderful thing to become metabolically flexible for sure. It's a great way to manage hunger. You're less hungry all the time when you are going low carb. When you're in ketosis, your insulin is just low. Everything's steady and managed, so you're not having those highs and lows. And a lot of people are drawn to it and kind of stick with it for a really long time because they like just not being hungry. And I admit it's kind of nice, to just not always be thinking about food or like, when's my next meal? Ketones feel really good on the brain. We talked about that. There's a lot of mental sharpness. And again, besides glucose, in terms of fuel, it's the other molecule that can cross that blood-brain barrier.
Question there.
Yes.
Can you take like ketones, like a pill?
Yeah.
Like I take vitamin C.
You can take exogenous ketones. Yeah. It used to just be that you could take them in the form of like esters or salts. Now they have actual little drinks. There's a couple brands that are out there in particular that are pretty decent. I don't think they taste great. I've never drank an exogenous ketone drink that I was like, this is the best. But Ketone IQ, I think, is what I'm thinking of. That's the best tasting one I've been able to find. What's
the benefits? I'd love to try it. What's the benefits of doing like a ketosis drink or ketosis like you take vitamins?
Well, I don't know that anyone's telling you to take it like you'd take a vitamin, but you can strategically take exogenous ketones. One, the benefit you'd get is you'd get the benefit of the ketone without necessarily having to be in ketosis, right? So you're hacking it a little bit. Yeah. I know some people, for one reason or another, want to be in a deeper state of ketosis, so they'll get themselves in ketosis, also do exogenous ketones to bring their ketones up. There's a lot of different things. And I know there's I think, some good science coming up that maybe we might want to start playing around with giving these sorts of things to our kids, like maybe Cash when he goes and plays football, because it's protective of the brain. So
concussion and stuff like that.
Exactly. And I think it can be very therapeutic with migraines, with seizure disorders, like we talked about. So there's a lot there. I mean, we could do a whole podcast. Yeah,
no, that's helpful. And when you say deep ketosis, that strikes me as like new agey. And
I understand.
You know what I'm saying?
Don't take it that way.
Yeah. So what do you mean by deep ketosis?
I literally mean that would just mean what level of ketones are you? You can measure ketones different ways. This is just turning into a podcast about ketones, which is not.
No, we're going to keep moving.
Not what we meant to do, but
it is the keto diet.
It is. It's simply just what level of ketones are you is your body making? That's
okay.
All. That's
and then if your body is in this ketosis framework or I guess deep state of I can't say it.
His brain can't.
Deep state of ketosis.
Ketosis is like the cloud. It's like time travel.
Yeah. Yes. Like, Annie doesn't understand the cloud. I don't understand ketosis.
I don't understand the cloud. So I get it. I get it. It's okay. You can live a full life probably without totally understanding it.
Probably. How does it? So I guess probably what I'm trying to get at is, can you objectively? Because a lot of these in our modern health world, people say things, make claims all the time, and they make the claim, and the claim's the claim because it exists because they made the claim. There's no science backing it up, if that makes sense. Are
you asking just in terms of measuring?
Can you measure like ketosis in your body and in your brain?
Very easily.
Okay.
You can measure it 3 ways: blood, urine, and breath. Breath is, I would say, by far the most accurate.
Oh, really?
And you can buy a real famous model is called the Keto Mojo. You literally like blow into it and it'll tell you. It's really actually very easy to measure.
Wow. We should do that. I'd like to test that out.
I can do this. I promise you won't have any, but that's we can measure.
Like Gabe's brain cells, I will have no ketosis. There'll be no ketones.
He has no ketosis.
No ketones.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so what's the cons of? Okay, so we're still talking about the keto diet. What's the cons of this?
Okay, we'll talk about the cons. Okay, so really, number one, I'm just going to throw this out there. It should go without saying, but dirty keto, I can't stand it. But because the ketogenic diet, by definition, technically just requires your carbohydrates to be low enough that your body switches into fat burning mode, you technically can get away with it by eating bricks of cream cheese and bacon all day. I mean, and that is what some people do.
And so you line your arteries up really well.
Right, you back your liver up, you get inflamed. Like it's so obvious, but I'm just going to say, just because you're low carb does not mean that you are healthy or that you're going to live very long. So just don't do dirty keto, but I think that's really obvious. Okay.
I don't know, but I could probably see me just eating bacon every day all day.
It's the kind of thing that a lot of men are drawn. Yes, they're like, I can just eat bacon and cream cheese.
Yep, I'm healthy.
Sprinkle a little extra cheese on top. Yeah, exactly. Don't do that, guys. That's gross. Okay, so
long-term cons.
Yeah, and the reason I want you guys to really get this is that I think a lot of times a lot of things that are helpful in the short term can kind of attenuate and then become detrimental in the long term. And that's going to be a recurring theme of all 3 of these that we're talking about today. So in the long term, and I don't mean just like a year. I mean, like some people will do the keto diet hardcore. Like I will. I am
for like 5 years. That's all they do. Yeah.
2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. That's when you start seeing these negatives.
Right.
And interestingly,
and for vegetarians, it's 5 days.
No, it can take a long time for them too. So I just want you to note, I'm talking about long term, not short term. And I'm also not talking about the people that have caught on to this and started to flex in and out of ketosis. That's the way to go. And a lot of people have figured that out. So like Ben Azadi, Keto Flex, Tara Garrison, short-term keto, those are both of their books. So it's a lot of people are starting to figure it out. Ben Greenfield, he's famous for saying that he eats all his carbs at night. So he's ketogenic mostly during the day, loads up at carbs at night. Smart plan. But for a lot of people though, they get the short-term major benefits. I lost so much weight. I have so much mental clarity. I'm not hungry. I'm not, addicted to carbs, and they love it. So they marry it for life. And it's like, these are the women that are like, I haven't eaten a blueberry in 5 years. Like nothing. So that's who I'm talking to.
That's also just boring.
It can, yeah. I mean, but it's also
my diet's always my definition of a good diet always has a label of it can't be boring.
Well, that's actually quite healthy, and we can kind of get to
thank you. Too. I just made that up as I think it's the right thing though.
Your instincts are so good.
I think my instincts are amazing.
Really good.
Annie's always said that.
I've always said that about him. But okay, cons, long term, never flexing out is number 1, insulin insensitivity. Now, is that irony? I don't know. I always struggle with the definition of irony. But if you come to a diet,
or is it a paradox?
Is it a paradox? When you come to a diet to help you fix your insulin, and short term it does, but then you do it for so long that it actually messes it up again.
So
that'll happen.
So that insulin sensitivity, is that just because you're only feeding your body the same thing over and over again? It gets used to it, and your insulin's like, doesn't care anymore.
In a way, yeah. There's I will say a lot of people. I'll take a minute on this because this is going to be true of the carnivore diet too. A lot of people do not know this. I think most of us understand, like, okay, if your diet is skewed super heavily towards sugar and carbohydrates, especially the crappy processed kind, that's going to get you insulin resistance, insulin insensitivity, right? And we all kind of know that, whether or not we act on it or not, maybe not, but we get that, okay, if you eat too many carbs, you eat too much processed sugar, you're going to have issues with your insulin, you're going to get diabetes. That's your trajectory. Yeah. But what a lot of people don't know is that you can really skew other macronutrients, fat, protein, for really extremely for a really long time, you're going to get the same result. And there are studies to back this up.
The same result that your insulin
You'll
will,
become
and you'll get
insulin resistant
diabetic.
again.
Will you get diabetic or be on the road to diabetes?
Yeah,
Okay.
the same issue with being insulin resistant.
Okay.
And I want to say right now, there are some really good studies on this that if you are interested in, there is a guy named Joel Green. He just put out, he wrote the book, The Immunity Code, which I recommend if you're a nerd, but he just put out a book called The Way. And he talks very in depth about all these things, cites a ton of science, and it will blow your mind. So if you guys are like, what are you saying to me that the keto diet can make me insulin insensitive in the long haul? Look up that book, look up Joel, follow him on Instagram. He's brilliant. And he's always been, as far as I'm concerned, about 10 years ahead of everyone else. So yeah, interesting. So watch out for that. And I will say just anecdotally, I have started to see this. The keto diet's been around a little longer. Yeah. Carnivore kind of came a little later and, and fasting. So we're a little bit more.
I'm from Texas. It's always been around.
Yeah, no, meat's always been around. The fat of carnivore is a little more recent. So, but I've started to see a lot of really, really metabolically messed up people who have just done really hardcore keto for too long. Keeping going with the...
Now we're going into the carnivore.
Well, let's finish up the cons here. Okay. Let's finish up the cons of keto because there's another couple that are really important. Okay. Another thing you'll see if you do keto too hard for too long, especially if you're a woman, is like major adrenal dysfunction, dysregulated cortisol. So basically it's just your body has been in a stress state because you've just not given it any carbs for a really, really long time.
Because your body needs bread.
And you need carbs, spin down stress. Yeah. That's why doctors who know what they're doing, have people eat their carbs at night who can't sleep because it helps spin that cortisol down. And if you're without it, a short term, okay. Long term, you really start to see that. So ladies, symptoms of, this can be true of men too. I just see it more in women. Women are more sensitive to stress, but symptoms of adrenal dysfunction or dysregulated cortisol, fatigue in the morning, dysregulated sleep, hair falling out, fatigue, lethargy in the afternoon, all of those things, it's very, very common. And the problem is that all these moms are out there just working hard, raising their kids, not sleeping well anyways. And they're just like, well, this is probably just how I feel. But really take a step back and ask yourself, am I someone who's been ketoing really hard for a really long time? You might want to pull out of that to help prop your adrenals back up again. And the other one that I'll say, and this is especially true for females and even more true if it's a female athlete, is that you see hormone disruption with long-term keto, especially thyroid. And that is 100% what happened to me, I'm pretty sure, in hindsight. And I am still... I was doing very high intensity CrossFit type working out, and I was smart enough even then to eat some carbs, but I don't think in hindsight I was eating enough and completely whacked my thyroid out. And I'm still to this day working on rebuilding it. And that's a really pretty well documented phenomenon is that thyroid health in men too. But again, I see it more in women. Yeah. In men, you see testosterone go down. With long-term keto, so I always like to say that because men hate that.
That's why I will never go fully on that. That's why I won't do it. Yeah.
So yeah, those are just things you want to watch.
I mean, Annie married to me, so high stress life.
Well, I mean, there's some truth to that, Yeah. I mean,
high stress.
It's not a low stress life.
Sorry. Okay, let's go on to the carnivore.
Okay, so this is what happens. Not always, but this is what happens. Is someone ketos, at first it works great, then everything kind of attenuates, and then things start to go bad, right? Yeah. Because if your thyroid tanks and your cortisol's out, and your hair starts
falling out.
You gain weight usually. Your metabolic rate goes down. Oh yeah, you become kind of weight loss resistant, and then women are, instead of being like, oh, this isn't working, I need to go back the other way, they're like, I got to keto even harder. Yeah. What's even more hardcore? Carnivore. And that's where they go. And they're like, now.
Just meat.
Yeah.
Just meat. So you can't have bacon and block of cream cheese anymore. Now you just got to eat meat.
Okay, that's the dirty keto thing. There's levels of carnivore. If you're really, really hardcore, like Jordan Peterson, or at least the last time I heard from him, he kind of made it real famous, right? When he was talking about, we're talking like
I don't know.
Hardcore like meat and salt, and that's it.
I don't follow Jordan Peterson's dieting. I just don't.
He and his daughter
really?
Put carnivore on the map to some degree because they're dealing with a bunch of issues, and it can be...
I just ate meat.
His voice.
I can't
so if you're really hardcore, it's meat and salt. A lot of people do kind of like a level 2 where it's like animal products. So they'll do meat, eggs,
squirrels,
dairy. Yeah, squirrel, if you can catch it, you can eat that on the carnivore diet. But so any amount of like low starch vegetables or berries that maybe you could get by with on the keto diet are now gone. All right.
Oh, okay.
Next level.
So it really basically what this is doing, it's really eliminating more foods you can't have.
Yes. And listen, let's talk about the pros first, because I want to give credit where credit's due. I actually love, personally, the way I feel on the carnivore diet. It's my favorite for, preference wise. I love meat and I love eggs, and I would eat just that way most of the time.
Meat and protein.
If I didn't think my gut needed something different. I love how it feels. All of the benefits of keto, really, plus a little bit more. One of them is you usually see a little bit more initial weight loss because you're just being even more restricted, and you're basically carbs are at zero. You can initially, if you're new to it, see some insulin sensitivity, which is great. Another benefit of the carnivore diet is it effectively removes all processed food, which is a net plus in terms of just general health. So one of the reasons that people get on the carnivore diet and that are like, I feel really good, at least at first, is because zero processed food. So if you come from the standard American diet and go to the carnivore diet, you're going to feel way better. And even if you go from keto and you were eating a ton of like keto bars and keto products and keto cracker, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're not going to have that with carnivore. So that's a pro. And that's one of the reasons people feel so good. And I would say gut relief initially is probably one of the biggest draws to the carnivore diet. Usually people either with autoimmune issues or gut issues, that's why they're drawn there, because you do get relief. But I want to be clear.
What do you mean by gut relief?
Yeah, I'll tell you why. Because most of the foods that are really irritating to a dysbiotic gut are going to be your like fermentable fibers.
Your grains and stuff like that.
Yeah, and like your broccoli and your things that are just harder for a gut to digest, especially if it's not set up.
I remember we used to make this homemade cauliflower pizza.
Oh yeah.
And that always just, my gut didn't like that.
It was a lot of cauliflower.
Yeah,
There's a lot of fermenting going on.
I like some of the flavor a little bit. The flavor wasn't too bad because you get a lot of, cauliflower just kind of adapts really to whatever flavor you put on it. So
it's great. It's a very neutral thing. But that's what that was. It was a lot of fermenting. So this is a thing, is that when you take all of these highly fermentable fibers out of someone's diet, they get a lot of relief because all they're doing is just, it's like aminos in there. It's just meat. And that can be for short term very healing. And meat can be healing, but it's also just, and I think people don't think of this rightly sometimes. It's not so much that you're all the way better. It's just you're taking the irritant away, right? You're taking the irritant away. And that's nice.
I guess irritant. That's a weird term for me because like
things that
broccoli
trigger people's guts.
Okay, okay.
I mean,
because broccoli, some people their gut's not triggered by broccoli or cauliflower.
I'm just saying the people that do,
I
and it's a lot of Americans. We have very messed up guts, right? And they just can't handle a lot of these things. Like I can't do beans, I can't do this, I can't do that. So the carnivore diet takes it away. They get some healing, and in the short term, I have had people do the carnivore diet so they can just get a break and their gut can calm down, because it really is effective for that.
Yeah.
And then the last pro I would just say is that it's very simple. Like it's like black and white, so simple.
It's just burger meat.
It's just
steak meat.
It's like just eat meat.
And does fish is meat? Is fish a meat in this category?
Fish is meat. How are you doing this podcast if you don't know that fish is meat?
Well, because some Catholics can't eat. They can only eat fish on Friday. I don't know what that has to do with this argument. I have no argument here. Actually,
just take it back. That was terrible.
Never mind.
Okay.
All right. So the cons of we're in the carnivore. The cons of the carnivore.
Yes, the cons. Okay. Well, if you do it again, I'm not saying I'm not saying this about someone who's like dabbling in it, or some days are carnivore, other days or something. I'm talking about the hardcore. I've eaten nothing but meat and salt for again, not just 1 year, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we're in the infancy more of this, but I am starting to see these people, the people who got on the bus early
and been on it for 3 years or whatever.
Exactly. And we're starting to see the same thing. Insulin insensitivity, again, for the same reasons that we talked about with the keto diet.
It's almost like God made you to eat all of his creation.
It's 100%. That's 100% going to be the takeaway here. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And sadly, gut issues, which again, is that irony when you go to a diet, because you have gut issues, and in the short term, it helps you.
Irony.
I don't know what it is.
Is it a paradox?
But in the long term, it actually can mess your gut up more. Yeah. And that is simply because when you are eating such an undiverse diet with zero fermentable fibers or resistant starch or anything, those are the kinds of foods that feed the beneficial bacteria that you need in your gut. So your Akkermansia, your bifidobacteria, your butyrate producing bugs in your gut, basically. Long term, you're going to end up with serious dysbiosis in your gut.
Yeah. What's dysbiosis?
Just very simple terms, a very unhealthy gut where your bacterial populations, good and bad, are not
imbalanced.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's what we're
Keep
seeing.
it clean, baby. This is PG. Way to go.
Sorry.
Way to go.
Yeah. Just we're seeing more and more of that long term, and it's hard, and it's because again, something that is very helpful in the short term can end up doing a lot of damage in the long term. Joel Green, to bring him up again, he calls that the time inversion effect. And it really is real as far as I can tell. And I think we're going to continue.
What do you mean the time inversion?
So like as time goes on, the benefit, everything inverts.
Okay.
It's a benefit. And then actually your insulin resistance, oh, now your gut's messed up, And again, it's all about the dose and the duration, right? Again, you can see some serious adrenal dysfunction here, sometimes even more so than keto, just because your diet is so limited. Right? And then you can also see some tanked hormones. You can see thyroid's not doing well, similar to keto as well. So again, awesome in the short term. Watch out in the long term. Yeah, watch out. And then
so hang on here. We've gone through keto, dirty keto. We've gone through the carnivore. We've gone through the pros and cons of all these. Now the fasting diet.
Don't call it the fasting diet.
Yeah, because it's the diet of diets.
Fasting.
Yeah, fasting. Okay.
And nothing is more right now, as far as I can tell, like than fasting. So we're just gonna
look at
it a little bit.
How are you defining fasting?
That's a really great question.
Is it? Because I thought I was asking a dumb question. Basically, my definition would be like, you just don't eat food for
that's really just don't eat
1 day, 2 day, 3 days, whatever.
Yeah, well, that's a really good question because in the context of what we're talking about, and that's something I wanted to clarify before we start talking about it, is that because I think a lot of people are going to hear the me say pros and then say cons and be like, oh my gosh, that's not. And it really depends on how much fasting you're doing and what you define as a fast, right? And this term it gets thrown around: fasting, time restricted eating, and no one really knows what anyone else is talking about. So we'll define some terms.
Well,
here.
I'm fasting from beets right now.
I mean, you're always fasting from something.
Exactly.
But technically, fasting just means not eating, right? And I want to say from the jump that just while every night when you're sleeping, you're
fasting,
right? Unless you get up to eat, which I hope you don't. You're fasting. So some people who are very triggered by even the word fast, and I guess I get it, it's kind of overused and undefined and things. Sure. When I talk about the pros and then even more so the cons here, I am not talking to you out there who simply has discovered that eating dinner at 6 and then just not eating after dinner and then fasting until breakfast the next day. That's perfectly healthy. And that's what everybody used to do. Yeah. Like just like that to some Americans now, they're like, oh my gosh, that's a fast. How will I ever do it? But it's like, that's normal digestive rest. And I encourage that. That's really good for you to have certain periods during the day
where you don't eat every hour.
Constantly eating, right? I mean, it's good practice. You probably have blood sugar issues. If you just can't even make it that long without eating, you're probably not eating enough protein earlier in the day. I mean, there's so many things. So you could call that a fast. And for some people, that's all they ever will need to do in the realm of fasting. And I completely encourage that. Okay. So when I talk about the pros and the cons, I'm talking about something a little more intense.
Like a 3-day fast, 5-day fast.
I mean, there's people or even women who are doing like OMAD, which is, that means 1 meal a day. That's very popular where they literally only eat 1 meal a day. Okay. There's some women literally only eating every other day, maybe once a week doing a full 24 or a 48-hour fast. I'm talking about more aggressive fasting. Okay. And that's very, very popular right now. Yeah. So I thought it would be worth us speaking to it. All right. But anyways, okay. So so let's talk about the pros. And again, you're going to see, at least in my opinion, a very strong correlation between how long you do it and how much you do it and whether or not it's helpful or not helpful. Okay, so I would say fasting in the short term and used wisely and surgically can, again, help very much so with insulin sensitivity. So it can be very effective for that, which is phenomenal. It's great for autophagy, which, buzzword.
That's a big word.
I know. It just means self-eating. It's basically just cellular cleanup. All it is. That's all it is.
Where your body's digesting its own fats.
It's it's like at a cellular level. So it's like taking care and getting rid of senescent cells, which is really important. And you can really, your body, if you're constantly feeding it, again, it's constantly having to work on digestion and or all these things that are like growth oriented. So you have to give yourself a break from eating sometimes so that you can get some of that cellular house cleaning out of the way. So it's great for that. And autophagy is really big in the conversation of longevity. There's a lot of people out there who are like, you need to do some amount of fasting because it's going to increase your amount of autophagy. You're going to live longer. So, great. That's good to know. Digestive rest, which can help with gut health. I know a lot of people who actually their guts are a lot healthier with strategic fasts because again, they're just giving their gut a break. Like just, your gut's like, just stop giving me food all the time. Like give me a break. So it can be helpful for that. It can, again, in the short term, be a helpful hormonal reset. I've definitely seen some good research on that. I've experienced it with some clients. It can help with autoimmune. It's kind of like a Swiss Army knife in a lot of ways. It can help starve some cancers. Some, but not all. So that's really cool. And I will say just kind of personally, one of the biggest benefits I have found as a busy mom with fasting or just having the ability to not eat comfortably. That's how I like putting it. Yeah. Is like I can eat and I usually do eat, but I can not eat and I'll be okay. I will not be the same person that I used to be where I would be shaking and I can't go shopping without eating a cookie. You know what I mean? Right. Yep. It's really helpful for travel. Yeah. Or like anytime you're on an airplane, staying at someone's house, whatever you're doing, just to not be a slave to your blood sugar. Yeah. And like maybe you're on an airplane and all they give you are like goldfish and you're just like, I don't feel great when I eat goldfish.
The cookie and the pretzels, what I got on this
airplane
last
is a perfect example because it's just garbage food. I mean, it's fine, but like I know I don't want to eat it and I can comfortably sit through that airplane ride and not be like, I'm so hungry, which is miserable, right? Yeah. And if it
my issue, it's funny you bring up flying because I can eat, I have no problem. I have, eggs in the morning, a protein lunch, and then at night we do regular dinner. We don't really change much in our dinners. Bread, whatever, carbs. We have carbs at dinner. Mm-hmm. But when I travel, it's like I need to eat. I don't know if it's the plane, it's the long flights, it's maybe the dehydration or something.
Yeah.
Because I don't have the same stress or whatever you want to call it that makes me want to eat. Like I do when I'm traveling.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably for a lot of reasons. I mean, number one, working on your metabolic flexibility so that you were able to go longer stretches without food if you needed to. Yeah. And again, looking at that like a tool in the toolbox, not like this is what I do every single day, which is where you run into trouble, would be really, really helpful for you because you travel. Mm. But there's also other things like when you don't sleep well, you crave more carbs the next day. Sure. There's all kinds of things. Sure. But it's a great, the travel thing, it's a great argument to teach your body to fast, even if you're not going to use it all the time. Yeah. It's really, really helpful. Yeah. Just like from a busy mom perspective, it's really nice. So anyways, tons of Swiss Army knife for sure.
Okay, so we're talking about fasting for those who are still tuning in here on this third one. And now fasting, what are the cons of fasting?
Oh, the cons. Ladies. I feel like...
I think acromantia is probably a big con.
Did you read? Oh, you read acromantia on there. It is. You are so smart. Where did you read about acromantia?
What does acromantia mean? What does it mean?
It's okay, hold on. I'm going to get to that. That's gut stuff. Okay, so I just want to say this. In my experience, fasting is sort of like CrossFit, or CrossFit was, where to some degree, there's always exceptions, and there was exceptions in CrossFit, but fasting seems to draw the same kind of like all-in type A, I lost some weight fasting 1 day a week, I'm going to fast 2. Oh, that's working, I'm going to do 3. And then all of a sudden, I haven't eaten for a week. I feel amazing. Those kinds of people, like who just can't be moderate and have this, they can't, it's like more is better, that kind of person. So some of it is the kind of people that seem to be drawn to fasting, which CrossFit was the same way. Yeah. So I'm just going to preface it with that. And I just want to remind you.
Don't be neurotic. That's the...
more is not always better. Ladies, more is not always better. And again, I just want to say, this is not I'm a big fan of fasting when used surgically, correctly, wisely. Okay. All that said, for the people, and these are mostly women, again, in my experience, who are fasting way too much and for way too long.
Yeah.
Number one, you do start to see serious gut problems. And the reason for that is fasting proliferates acromantia. And acromantia's job is to kind of eat away at the mucus lining of your gut. And you need some of it. Yeah. And a lot of times people coming out of carnivore don't have any because they're not eating any of those, fermentable fibers. But another way to up the amount of acromantia that your body produces is to just fast. But if you have too much, because you've been doing these crazy long fasts,
too much acromantia,
you will literally eat your own gut lining. Like it will start sloughing away, and that is a real thing. And I see it. I mean, and I just you see it also historically with people who are starving because it's really not any different, right? So that can be a thing we need to watch out for. You really do want to take care of your gut long term. Okay, you start to see often major, and I see these more here, even more so in people who are over fasting than I do with the keto people or the carnivore people, or it's just signs of major adrenal dysfunction.
Yeah.
Usually the first thing to go is sleep. And ladies, if you are fasting a lot and you are not sleeping, that is a problem.
Yeah.
That is a problem. Hair starts falling out. Irritability, lethargy, cortisol that is completely dysregulated, spiking at night, low in the morning.
Opposites.
And not good. And you can even start seeing an increase in like a swelling in your belly, which
so you aren't getting fat, but your belly's getting bigger.
They call it a cortisol belly, like literally just due to those high
cortisol
levels of cortisol where. Wow. Where you're like, what is going on? Like, I'm not eating at all, and I'm like swelling, and that's what you can get.
Okay.
You can deal with obviously a lot of nutrient deficiency.
Yeah, because you aren't getting vitamin C or whatever.
You're not getting a lot of things because you're just not eating enough.
Are you just drinking water because you can't fast from water?
You can. Most people, that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
So they'll do a water, like a water fast, or some people just do coffee. It just kind of depends, but they're not eating nutrient dense food. They're not eating enough of it. You know. Right. You can definitely start seeing when you're fasting too long, too much, a depressed metabolism. And this is something, it is such a frustration. But I get women all the time now who started with minimal fasting. And then as with everything, it worked for a while, then kind of it attenuated, the effectiveness of it wore off a little bit. So they're like, okay, well, I'm just going to do even more. I'm going to just do OMAD. I'm only going to eat one meal a day. So what is that? I mean, 500 to 600 calories in a day. It's hard to eat more than that in a sitting. Yeah. So maybe 800 calories if you were really putting food away in your one meal a day. So, I mean, fasting we see that as like, oh, it's healthy. But if you sat there and just said, every day I just eat 800 calories, anybody with their head on straight would be like, well, you're severely under eating, right? And what does your body do long term? There's a little lag time, but long term, what does your body do when you severely underfeed it? Yeah. It downregulates. Yeah. Thyroid downregulates, metabolic rate downregulates, so you don't die, right? So these women come to me, and I can think of so many off the top of my head right now who are, overweight, cannot lose weight, and are eating less than 1,000 calories a day.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, so you really have to keep in mind how metabolism works long term when you're doing these sorts of things, right? You really got to be careful.
So what happens is they stop eating or eat very little every day, and then the metabolism comes down to start meeting that level of intake there. And so they could actually probably be eating more and still and the metabolism meet that intake.
Yeah, that's called reverse diet. And that's what you have to do. When you find someone...
When you've tanked your metabolism.
And it's really painful, and it's really hard to get women to do.
Yeah.
To be like,
because you might initially actually gain some weight out of that reverse diet.
You usually do, but you're slowly bringing that intake.
But you got to have a healthy metabolism
to bring that metabolism back up. No, it's awful. And I again, some fasting.
We should do a whole podcast on reverse diet.
Yeah, we absolutely can. And the last thing I want to mention about fasting, because how are we doing on time?
You got probably about 3 minutes, and you got to go pick up the kids.
Oh yeah, our kids. The last thing I want to say about fasting, you guys, especially when you're just doing so much of it and it's like a lifestyle for you. One thing you need to consider, ladies, is that tons of fasting all the time is not synergistic with muscle build at all. And most women, in my opinion,
lose muscle,
go into fasting with a below optimal lean body mass. And fasting, if you're not so careful, eating a ton of protein, lifting a bunch of weight, doing all the things to mitigate that, you're going to waste muscle and you're going to come out on the other end of your foray, be it a year, be it 3 or 5 years, skinny fat with actually your ratio of body fat to lean muscle even worse than when you started it. And I'm telling you, you do not want to go into perimenopause and then into menopause with a super low lean body mass. That is a terrible idea for general health and just longevity.
Just kind of going through this. I don't know. We don't have tons of time to go through all the wrap up here.
I know there's a lot of other shows we could do. A lot of these things.
But we've talked about this before. But I mean, like God made the world a certain way.
Yeah.
And He gave us all this food. Grapes to to meat to fruit to vegetables. And basically, kind of what you're arguing is like you just need to have a balanced way of consuming food.
Yes.
And of course it's going to be tailored for your individual body,
Yes.
For whatever reason, God made me allergic to cut grass. the grass gets cut.
Yes.
I sneeze, you know?
Yes.
And so you got to, know your individual body and all this. But like I've always joked with you, but also seriously, it's been a joke, but it's been serious where I've always said any diet that conflicts with the Lord's Supper is not a good diet to me.
There's no way it could be good. No.
Because, Jesus said, go. He's like, drink wine and eat this bread and do this in remembrance of me.
Yeah, no.
And unfortunately, there's some people who can't eat bread, which is very sad. And so they have to do the cracker or whatever. But God gave us, God commanded us in the Lord's Supper to do this. So why couldn't we have it, or why shouldn't it be part of our natural daily plan? And then the same thing with God gave us meat. God said, go kill and eat. And then you have examples throughout the scriptures where Daniel in Babylon picked a food fight, eating vegetables and stuff like that. So God gave us, this goes back to last week where it says, the earth is the Lord's in all its fullness. In 1 Corinthians chapter 10, Paul is quoting from Psalm chapter 24, which is a different context. And Paul pulled that verse out and put it in the context of food. Earth is the Lord in all its fullness, so go eat.
I mean, I think you're right on the money, and it's just always funny to me when, eventually science comes out with this new thing, or like, oh, actually, you need both. You need plants and you need meat, because the benefits of the plants, offset the toxicities of the meat, and the benefits of the meat offset the toxicities of the plants. And it's like, we already knew that. So I mean, my takeaways here are like, none of these diets, like I've said, I use them myself. I have some of my clients do them. None of them are inherently wrong or bad. But you must pay attention to duration and dose and the context of the individual.
And apparently your hair falling out. You keep bringing that up.
Oh, it's a thing for girls. Stress. Diet stress, exercise stress. If your hair's falling out, not good. Not good. And you see it a lot. But it's okay to have seasons of imbalance. It's okay to have a season where, we really need to help. You're pre-diabetic. We need to bring this down. We're gonna bring carbs down for a while. Or we're gonna just do meat. We're gonna let your gut heal. That's fine. But over the long term, our body, over the not just the weeks or the months, but the years, our body needs balance. We need homeostasis. Another thing, just that overarching thing, I think that I just can't reiterate it enough, that oftentimes something that is very beneficial in the short term can end up not just neutralizing, but be actually harmful in the long term. And we Americans are very bad at thinking long term. We just want quick fixes now, and we need to do better thinking more long term.
Right.
Eventually, every single intervention, every drug, every exercise, every diet plan will attenuate. Things are usually, those things, they work really well up front.
By attenuate, you mean slowly run its course and lose all its benefits, basically.
Gradually lose its
effectiveness and potency.
Exactly. And we've all experienced that. Like you experienced that with a drug. You've experienced that with a certain set of workouts, so everything attenuates. So we need variety. And then my last thing is just keep in mind that women's bodies are more sensitive to stress than men's are. And that's something we got to be aware of when we make our diet choices. So there you go.
Very good, baby.
Sure, we ruffled some feathers.
Good. Make sure you guys follow Annie on Instagram. That's Annie M. Wrench.
Yep, Annie M. Wrench.
Oops, that's the wrong one. Annie M. Wrench on Instagram. And if you have any questions, email us at renchmedia@gmail.com.
Yeah.
And we'd love to kind of get either to some of your questions on the show. We'll take your name out, or some of the topics that you might want us to get into on the show. This is my favorite time of the week because I get to spend an hour with you, especially since I've been traveling this last week. This is our first time to.
I haven't even seen you.
I know. I haven't even seen you until the show.
Monday.
I got back last night, and everyone was asleep because I got back too late. And then I wake up early before everyone was up. So
that's our life. Yes.
My hair's not falling out though, so I'm doing all right.
You handle stress better than I do. That is for sure.
Hey everybody, thank you for joining the Waterbreak on the Fight Laugh Feast Network. This is the Water Boy and Water Girl. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week. Yeah.